So I am in the presence of a great friend of mine. He's become a friend through the understanding that we both share. His name is Jamie Smart. And the reason why I'm speaking to Jamie today is because he has very kindly agreed to be one of the speakers for my 12 months beyond diagnosis program. So welcome, Jamie. So lovely to have you.
Oh, well, it's so wonderful to be invited and lovely to see you, Rani. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure, Jamie. And I wanted to ask you some questions today because I have a sense that you have noticed it too. And during our conversations, you have said that this is what I keep hearing, that mental health problems have increased several fold, especially after the pandemic. And more people are struggling these days. And I do know that more and more people are also receiving some kind of mental health diagnosis because they are suffering. For whatever reason, they are suffering. We are seeing that
Mhm.
despite the help out there, people are spending less and less time in well-being and more time in stress and challenges. So as a clarity coach trainer and the founder of Clarity Coaching School, how do you see it, Jamie?
Yeah, I how I see it is in a almost in a historic sense. Like we live in the time of the information revolution, and the information revolution is like it says in the name. It's a revolution. It's a massive change in how we're relating to the world and to work and to each other. And these revolutions sweep through humanity like once in a blue moon. So we had the agricultural revolution 10,000 years ago. We had the industrial revolution a few hundred years ago. Now we've got the information revolution. Well, when the industrial revolution came along in like the 1800s, all of a sudden you had millions of people moving into massive cities and and huge hospitals to deal with them. And the collision of the industrial revolution and humanity's ignorance of germ theory resulted in a humanitarian crisis in infection and physical health. And the solution to that was germ theory, right? Which was kind of realized in the 1800s and then made into the orthodoxy at the beginning of the 20th century. Well, we're in a similar position, which is we've got this incredible exponential increase in digital technology, everything from, email and social media to algorithms and artificial intelligence and all this sort of stuff. And we have these uh our our conscious minds, our cognitive structures have evolved for a linear world, not for an exponential digital world. So we've got the collision of the information revolution with a fundamental misunderstanding of how our experience is created and who we really are. Like we're living just like the Victorians were living in a misunderstanding of how infection and disease was created. We're living in a fundamental misunderstanding of how our minds work and who we really are. And so that's bad news and good news. It's bad news because, as you say, the increase in what we're seeing is an increase in mental health challenges and diagnoses and that sort of thing. That's bad news. But the good news is that 45 years ago, a guy called Sydney Banks insightfully saw that just like there are principles behind how the physical world works, there are principles behind how our psychological functioning works. And what that means is that anyone is only one insight away from having good mental health. And so you and I both know, Ronnie, that this is the well, actually, I'll tell a little bit of my story. So I had been in 2009, I'd been working for a decade as a personal development trainer and as a coach and doing therapeutic change work with people. I'd recovered from alcoholism myself. And I was doing okay, but it was kind of hard work. I was having to do a lot of work up here to kind of stay on the straight and narrow. And I stumbled across these principles in 2009 and I started having insights. And my first insight was, oh, everything you've been looking for outside of you is already there within you. Now, I'd heard that kind of thing before, but I went from kind of having an intellectual understanding of it to knowing it like you know your own name. And so all of a sudden, I it really, really reduced the amount of time I was having to spend trying to work on myself and fix myself and all that sort of thing. Just kind of settled down. It's like, oh. And then a couple of weeks later, I had another insight. And what I realized was, oh, the fact that a person can even see or hear or feel or perceive means they have that source of mental health and well-being already there within them. And that made me so much more hopeful for my clients. And so anyone watching this, like, what I can promise you is you have good reason to be hopeful no matter what you've been through, no matter what diagnosis you may have been labeled with, no matter what stuff you've tried that hasn't worked or whatever it might be, that you have a source of mental health and well-being and resilience and clarity already there within you that can help you out. Now, sometimes when I say that to people, they're like, "Well, where the hell is it?" Because I've been trying to solve this for, sometimes decades. I'm like, "Yeah, well, that's where you and me and our colleagues come in, Ronnie, which is our fascination is in helping people kind of get a feel for and catch a glimpse of that source of mental health and well-being that's there within. And I'll give you an example. My first book, Clarity, came out nearly 10 years ago. And I got all kinds of emails from people who had read it, but one of them really stands out as from a woman who is a war veteran and who had been diagnosed with PTSD and had been receiving treatment for 10 years for post-traumatic stress disorder. So she'd had CBT, various forms of psychotherapy, medication, all kinds of different things. She writes me this email. She said, "I know your book probably wasn't designed to do this, but I had an insight and I don't have PTSD anymore."
Wow.
She said, "In all the years of getting treatment for PTSD, no one ever told me that I was okay, that there was nothing wrong with me. I was always treated as though that I was broken." She said, "So thank you so much." And so here's the funny thing, I've just written the 10th anniversary edition, and I managed to do a follow-up with her to find out where is she now. So it's like 6 years later, 6 years since she sent me that email. She's doing good. She started a business with her husband. She's happy, all this sort of stuff. So it has continued to unfold. So one of the things that I love about this understanding that we explore and share is that it looks truly generative to me. Like I'll work with people and then not see them for 5 years, and I'll see them 5 years later. I'm like, "How you doing?" And there's been a positive snowball effect because as you this is just true of how we tick as human beings. When you see something that's already true about some aspect of the world, then your mind starts to generalize it, and it starts to create this kind of virtuous cycle. So, man, I've talked a lot, but that's how it strikes me today.
Yeah, no, beautiful. Wow. Like thinking about what you just said about this lady writing to you with this PTSD. How many people have that? I know people who have been through services and they have been receiving treatment for a long, long time, and still then they might not have any insights so powerful that they say, I don't have any PTSD anymore. And you didn't even do therapy or anything. It was just your book, and they saw something very powerful for them. One of the 6 books that I'm going to recommend in my the 12 months course, definitely the Little Book of Clarity. And I'm so grateful that the latest version of your Little Book of Clarity is going to be coming out in January. We talked
Yeah.
about it. And so that's definitely going to be one of the books we are recommending. And then you are coming to be a speaker. And if for one person just reading your book alone, all by herself, gave her this powerful insight to her PTSD and who she truly is, and that the PTSD is now a thing of the past. Can you imagine what is going to be possible for anyone who signs up for this program? How can you not have insight of the insights of the insights? And it's a 12 months program. Even people watching this from the 15 minutes conversation, they could take a lot out of this and they could have insight. But if that's possible in 15 minutes, can you imagine what's going to happen in 365 days?
Well, it's funny you say that, Ronnie. Like when I first came across this understanding, I had the insights I told you about. So like the first one was, oh, everything you've been looking for outside is already there within you. So it's like, oh, great. Then I was like, oh, the fact that a person can see, hear, or feel means they have the source of mental health already there within them. And it just changed everything, made me so much more hopeful. And it's why I say to anyone who's watching, you have good reason to be hopeful, like regardless of what may have been, what spells may have been cast in terms of diagnoses and that sort of thing. You have good reason to be hopeful. But the other thing I realized in June of that year was I saw, oh, these principles are to psychology what the discovery of germs was to medicine. This is the future of psychology. And what I realized then was like, oh, this is a whole new ball game. This is like stepping into a different world with regard to mental health. So as soon as I saw that, Rani, I was like, oh, you need to surround yourself with people who are looking in this direction. It just looks so obvious to me. You need to put yourself right into the middle of this because we live in a society where we're being told from every direction, whether it's through newspapers or social media or well-meaning friends or family or whatever, that it doesn't work this way, that it works, that our happiness and well-being comes as a result of our biology or what kind of car we have or how well we did at school or all these other things, which cigarettes we smoke or which watch we wear or whatever. All these things that we're told by some of the best marketing brains in the world that that's what's going to make us happy, right? So we're living in this semantic environment that is filled with fundamental misinformation about who we are and what we've got going for us. So when I saw what the truth of it was, I was like, oh, you need to put yourself right in the middle of this. You need to surround yourself with people who are looking in this direction. So it's one of the reasons I'm excited to be part of the program you're running is, you've got a group of people, all of whom are going to be looking in this direction. And the beautiful thing about that is we have this innate, every single one of us, the reason that woman could have that profound life-changing insight while reading the book was because we all have that capacity for insight. And if you can get into a space where that's deliberately designed to create the conditions for those insights to arise easily and readily, yeah, you're off to the races. So yeah, I'm excited to be part of it, Rani.
Jamie, this is amazing. Before I let you go, I want you to talk us through your formula. I'll call it a formula. What is clarity? Clarity equals capacity minus contamination. And I just love it. Can you just tell the audience something about your formula?
Yeah, sure. And it's just a simple way of thinking about well-being and high performance and really because if you think about it, Rani, like all of us have times when we connect easily with others or we have things that we do and we do it without even thinking about it and we do it well and that sort of thing. And we all have other times where we're all preoccupied and we're getting in our own way. And it's funny when I'm speaking with entrepreneurs and they say, what do you do? I'll say, how some days you you get out of bed and you can't put a foot wrong and everything falls into place and goes smoothly and you reach the end of the day feeling fulfilled and happy and like you really knocked it out of the park, and they'll be like, yeah. I say, those other days where you just should have stayed in bed because nothing worked and that sort of thing. They're like, yeah. I say, well, I help people have more of the first kind of day and fewer of the second kind of day. And the formula is really just that we have this innate capacity for clarity. We have this innate capacity for clarity, resilience, well-being, insight, creativity, love and connection, high performance, motivation. That's innate in human beings. You know, if you have any doubt about that, look at babies. They're not going on training courses or anything, but they're learning to walk and talk and all that sort of stuff. So that stuff is built in, but it gets obscured by contaminated thinking, which is just a way of describing the innocent, mistaken belief we have in who we are and how the world works. You know, we think that who we are is our ideas about ourselves, and we have all this innocent misinformation, and it clouds things up, and it obscures that capacity. But in any moment, we can stop. And what you find is that uh, innate capacity for clarity emerges, and it emerges automatically because it like you don't need to do all you need to do to allow the clarity to emerge is stop shaking it. Like it's a simple metaphor, but all too often when we get bothered or we get we get caught up, we run around trying to fix it when actually all we need to do is remember who we are and what we've got going for us. Now it's one thing to hear that conceptually, but what I want for everyone on your program and everyone in the world, is for people to realize it insightfully for themselves, to remember who they really are at the heart of their being, because for every single one of us, the moment we remember that, the moment we're reminded of who we really are, uh, our worries, our fears, our anxieties, our insecurities fall away, and the sunlight of who we really are can shine through. So, so yeah, so the clarity equation is really just clarity equals capacity minus contamination.
Love it. Love it. Thank you, Jamie. So I haven't got any more questions to ask you other than just say how grateful I am that you are in my life, Jamie, and that you have agreed to be part of this program. I look forward to having you as one of the speakers and to grab your book when it comes out.
Oh man, I'm looking forward to that too, Ronnie. I'm grateful to have you in my life, and thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be part of your program.
Thank you, Jamie.